Well, very good morning, guys. Okay. So, well, so last day we've just been stopped up a discussion talking about the launch settings.json file. Yeah, we are at the point of talking on the launch settings.json file. Basically, the launch settings, the name indicates, it will do some settings. It will do some settings while launching the application. So basically, here only we decide, in this file only we decide which server to be used. So right now, you want to use IIS Express server. Basically, in MVC, we learned two servers we can use now. One is IIS, one is IIS Express, correct? But here we have three servers. We have three servers here. One is IIS Express. By default, you're running an IIS Express. Yes or not? Apart from that IIS Express, you have another server under which your application is running actually. There is another server under which the application is running basically. Okay. The other server under which the application is running is, I forgot the name of this server. Okay. The server name is Kestrel, guys. Kestrel web server. So by default, you have two servers integrated into Visual Studio now. One is IIS Express. You already know that. And the second server is the Kestrel web server. There is a new server that is integrated into the studio for executing our application. One is the IIS Express. Right now, see, by default, you'll see here two profiles here. One is, and here what is selected? And we have one more server called Kestrel server. And for Kestrel server, the profile name is your project name only. What's your project name? This is the Kestrel server. This is the Kestrel server. This is the project name. See here, guys, in the drop down, you'll find that option. See, Core MVC Project 5. So this is going to be a Kestrel web server. When you run this, it's a command line server. Kestrel is a command line server. All of you observe, when I run this, it will first launch the Kestrel web server. Yeah, guys, this is a Kestrel web server. It's launching. It's a command line server. It's a command line server. And here it will show you the URL also. See, for HTTP protocol, 5000, HTTPS protocol, 5001. And then it launches the browser and watch, it is running on HTTPS protocol and the port number is 5001. Last class I shown you the two port numbers with IIS also, na? The same thing, the two port numbers here also. Kestrel is the second web server. Basically, this is designed for running your applications on Linux machine. This is designed for running your applications on the Linux machine. On Windows, you can use any of this. But if tomorrow you go to Linux, you cannot use IES there. What you should use is the Kestrel server. So totally 3 inbuilt servers are available for you in the Visual Studio. What we know one already. What is the one? IES Express. And the second server is a Kestrel web server. The Kestrel web server is a command line server. When you start it, you will see the Kestrel launching and showing you the port number on which it is running. 501 for HTTPS protocol, 5000 for HTTP protocol. Like this, it is going to run for you on both the 2 places too. Is it clear, guys? So tomorrow, if I host my application on IES, then it will add you the 3rd profile also now. What is the 3rd profile? IES profile. It will add you the 3rd profile. See here, profiles. It started a curly brace here. It's an array, guys. JSON format. It's an array. And basically, another thing started here. IES Express profile. Starting of the information. What is that command name? Launch the browser. Environment is development. You can see, again, this is a separate set now. Okay. And this is ended here. IES Express profile ended here. Okay. And just watch it. This is one profile. Starting from here to here, this is one profile. And this is the second profile. This is the second profile. What is that? MVC Core Project 5. That is nothing but the Kestrel web server. The profile name will be your project name only. Okay. Command name is a project. Here command name is IES Express. Project, nothing but a project name. Run messages through launch browser, through URLs. 5001 HTTPS, 5000 for HTTP. Environment variables, development. This is a development environment. Okay. I will host it on IES also. I'll show you. Once I host it on IES, then it will add you the 3rd profile. That is the IES profile also. And once it adds the IES profile, here you will get that option also. 3 options will come. IES, IES Express, and Core MVC project file. IES means our local IES. IES Express means the inbuilt IES Express server. And the Core MVC project file means the Kestrel web server. The Kestrel web server. Total 3 web servers what we have now. Are you clear? So what is the need of Kestrel web server? I said you to run the projects on Linux. Tomorrow, if at all you want to run on Linux, their IES and IES Express will not work for you. You're required to use the Kestrel web server. On Windows, everything works, but on Linux, only Kestrel works. Cross-platform, when I say cross-platform, I also require to provide a cross-platform server now. Are you getting me or not? When I say cross-platform, I also require to provide a cross-platform server, and that cross-platform server is the Kestrel web server. Google Classroom లేదు అంటే Google Classroom క్రియేట్ చేయించి జాబ్ గ్యారంటీ వాళ్ళందరినీ అందులో యాడ్ చేయించి ఎందుకంటే ఇప్పుడు మామూలుగా ఇన్స్టాక్ ఒకటి Google Classroom ఉంది. ఇప్పుడు అందులో జాబ్ గ్యారంటీ వాళ్ళని యాడ్ చేసాం అనుకో, ఈ మీటింగ్ ఐడీలు షేర్ చేసేయడం అనేది పెద్ద అయిపోతుంది. దానిలోనే కలపాలి. బ్యాచ్కి Google Classroom లేదు. నేను క్రియేట్ చేస్తాను. బ్యాచ్ కి Google Classroom క్రియేట్ చేసి మొత్తం బ్యాచ్ ఎంతమంది స్టూడెంట్స్ ఉన్నారు? 74. Six to nine, 6 to 8. 7, 8. Okay, that's 9 start out. Actually, that's good. Members మాత్రం క్లాస్ నిన్న వచ్చారు, రాలేదు. అది ఏమైందంటే నార్మల్గా పేమెంట్స్ మొబైల్ నెంబర్ తో యాక్సెస్ ఇస్తారు కదా వాళ్ళకి ఈ బ్యాచ్ లో ప్రాబ్లం ఏమవుతుంది సార్ రోజు లింక్ షేర్ చేస్తారు అయితే ఏమవుతుందంటే పేమెంట్ అయిపోయిందని చెప్పేసి నాకు లింక్ రాలేదంటే డైలీ లింక్ అదే పేమెంట్ నాకు యాప్ లో నాకు ఏదో ప్రాబ్లం అయ్యి నేను లాక్ అవ్వలేదు ఆన్లైన్ అది లైక్ ఒకటి చూసుకుంటాను సో ఇంకొకటి 7 o'clock తోటి మాట్లాడి మన రెగ్యులర్ బ్యాచ్ అయిపోతుంది నెక్స్ట్ వీక్ అంటే అయిపోతుంది ఈ పండుగ నెక్స్ట్ సాటర్డే అయిపోతుంది రేపు సాటర్డే కాదు నెక్స్ట్ సాటర్డే బ్యాచ్ అయిపోతుంది అయితే బ్యాచ్ Okay, sorry guys, I was just not speaking. Yeah, I'm not speaking, just hold on. Yeah, fine, I'm sorry. Yeah, what I said to you, there are 3 servers which are available for us. Earlier in MVC5, we have only 2 servers. What are the 2 servers? IS Express, IS. But now we have 3 servers, IS Express, Kestrel, and IS. Basically, Kestrel, I said to you, it is given for Linux because tomorrow when you say cross-platform, the ability of running the IS should be present for that. But IS will not run on any operating system except Windows. .NET is platform independent, but IS is not platform independent now. So tomorrow my .NET application is platform independent, but you don't have IS for your operating system then there is no use here. Yes or not? That is why they have launched you a separate web server called as Kestrel web server and pure platform independent server that will be running for you on the Linux machines. Is it clear, all of you? So totally how many servers we have now? 3. 2 are inbuilt. What? IS Express, Kestrel. IS Express is pure development server only. We don't use in the production environment. In the production environment, that can be either Kestrel server or the IS. Okay, na? So by default, the 2 profiles are present here. The first profile is the second profile, Kestrel. What will be the name? Your project name only. See, the command name is project. That only will be the project name here. And here you can see the 2 things. Now running an IS Express. And now, yeah, it is running an IS Express. What is the port number? 44371. Okay. And now I want to change this drop down to Kestrel. First, it will launch you the command line server, guys. In the command window, you'll see port number 5001. And you can see the address bar. The port number is 5001 now. Okay. For IS, port number is fixed, 80. For IS, port number is fixed and we don't require to give the port number for IS generally. Because IS by default runs on port number 80 only. Fine. So that's all about last class I explained you analyzers, frameworks, packages, projects, and now we are talking on properties. Under that, we talked about the launch settings. See, this contains different properties of your project that can be modifiable by double clicking on the node in the Solution Explorer. You can double click and open and modify. Most of the properties here affect the compile time and debug time behavior of your project. The only item inside of this node is launch settings.json. That contains a list of launch profiles. Each profile defines how to run your project, whether the browser should be opened or not, which port to use, what environment variable should be set when we run the project. By default, we'll be finding 2 profiles to run the ASP .NET Core web application. Those are IS Express profile and Core MVC Project 5. Given the name as Core MVC Project 5 profile. The launch settings.json file is as below in the project we have created. This is how it is going to be present by default. These port numbers are different. When I prepared that, what numbers are there, I put you, but you will get different numbers. Now only see these numbers are different and these numbers are different. You also will get different numbers. Here port will come, some port number. Okay. Here also. Same as this, you can see IS Express profile. And these ports are fixed here. 5000, 5001. For IS Express only random porting. But for Kestrel is fixed. 5000, 5001. This will be same only. On your machine also it will be same only. But these ports will change. Don't be confused again. Don't think like sir said this number is coming, I have a different number. You will get different number only. But for IS, for Kestrel, same. 5001, 5000 will come. Okay, now? Note, we can edit launch settings.json file by using the project properties window also. And to do that, double click on the properties node in Solution Explorer and the window open, click debug tab in left hand side, and this provides an option for editing launch settings. And to do that, click on open debug launch profiles UI. What is that? See, you can even edit. One way is you can edit like this. Second way is you can go to project properties. You know project properties now? Project properties. And in the project properties window, in the left hand side, you'll find an option called build. Debug tab. Debug. Debug tab. And here you see, you'll find open launch profiles UI. When you click on that, it opens you the window from where you can set up your settings now. IS Express. See, what is the environment? Development. Whether you want to launch a browser? Yes. All these things are taken from here only. Based on the things what you write here, the same things will apply here. Same way for here also. All. The environment is development environment. The browser should be launched. All the settings are done. Here are the URLs here. You can see the app URLs. You can do settings from here also. You can do directly from there, or you can do settings from here also. Both the two places you can do the changes. Okay. Well, how to, when I add to IS profile also will come. I'll show you. Hold on. Okay. I'm just first explaining every file for you. First, concentrate on that. Next one, www root. This is called as a project root folder. We call it the project root folder. And this is a folder where you're required to place all the static files. Static files in the sense HTML pages, .css pages, .js pages, images, all static files should be present under www root. In MVC5, we have maintained separate folders, so scripts folder, content separate folder, images separate folder. No, guys, now all of them should be under www root. If you expand this, it will show you the options to you. CSS, JS, any extra library, jQuery libraries or anything. If you want images, you can add another folder there called images and use it. So this is called as a project root folder that contains all the static files, only static files. Tomorrow, I want an image here. I want an image here. Right click on this, add a folder now. Add a folder. Okay, just a minute, all of you. www, right click, open folder in File Explorer. New folder name. When I add a folder here, when I add a content here, that doesn't come to the studio until and unless I select it and include in the project, correct? Yeah, that folder should be explicitly included into this. It should be explicitly included. What do you do? Right click, include in the project. Or you can directly add from here, or you can add there also. You can just add anywhere you just want. Okay. So like this, we are just going to maintain all the static files in this particular place. So in this www root in the images, I want to place some image, guys. I want to put some image file there. Okay. Hold on. Let me copy some image there. D drive, images folder. I'm atom.jpg is the image what I'm putting into the images folder. I copied that image into the images folder, but image came automatically. See, this is a new feature of Core. You add any files, you don't require to include the files. Folders should be included, but not files. Files are automatic. You copy there, that will come here. But in MVC, but in your older framework, compulsory file or folder should be explicitly included in the project. Yes or not? But from core onwards, folder should be included. Files are automatic. If you copy any file there, you will see the file here automatically. Okay, now. Okay, I want to launch this particular, I want to see this image now. So open the browser. What is the image name? Atom.jpg. Atom.jpg. That is the image what I want. Okay, it's not launched. It's not launched. But how will it launch? I'll just tell you. But basically, where you put the image, guys? In the images folder. You have put the image in the images folder. Okay. We did not use the folder name there. We did not use the folder name there. / images atom.jpg. You did not write www root. See there. You did not mention www root. Why? That all I'm telling you. That is the project's root folder. That is the, you don't require to mention that. When you say localhost and you refer to the project, that refers to the www root folder only. Did you understand my point or not? It refers to www root folder only. And anything in that folder can be directly accessed here. How to access? Folder name, file name. Folder name and the file name. And this folder is basically to put all the static files. Read it. This folder is known as a web root folder. This folder is known as a web root folder and contains all the static files of your application like CSS files, JavaScript files, HTML files, and image files. As you might figure out from its name, this will be a root folder of your web application. So if we add a new folder under www with the name images, and under that folder, if you add any image file with the name atom.jpg, then we can access that image from browser by using the address. By using the address, we can just access it. How? /images /atom. To test this, run the project by hitting F3 and then append images /atom.jpg to the URL in the address bar, which should now look as following. Here I'm just changing this to port number. What will come there? I don't know what is your port number. /images /atom.jpg. Okay. And this is purely for storing the static files. All static files should be present here only. Okay, now note, in traditional ASP.NET application, that is .NET framework, static files can be served from the root folder of any application or any other folder within it. You can put anywhere you want. You can put anywhere you want. Directly under the project you can add, or under project images, and you can add. You can add anywhere, but not possible in the core. In the core, all static files must be under www root only. Your CSS, HTML, JSS, images. Don't forget, all four must be under www root. See, in traditional ASP.NET application, is our old one, static files can be served from the root folder of an application or any other folder in it, which has been changed in ASP.NET Core. Now only those files are those files that are present in www root folder can be served over a HTTP request. All other files are blocked and cannot be served by default. Generally, there will be a separate folder for different type of static files, that is JavaScript, CSS, images, and library scripts. In the www, we can rename this folder name actually. The now folder name is a www root here. If you want, you can rename this. You can rename. I want to give some other name. You can just give. Possible. Are you getting what I'm telling you? You can rename this particular folder to any name. Option is available, but don't do it. Option is available, but don't do it. Don't try to rename. You can give whatever name you want. If at all you want to rename, how do you rename is, you're required to change the code. You're required to change the code in the program class. Tomorrow, if someone asks you a question about it, just I'm giving an idea for you, that's all. Can I change the www root folder name? Yes, it can be changed. Where to change? In the program class, we can go and change it. Okay, observe all of you. Go to program class, and here you'll be finding some code. This is the existing code we have, and here we can specify the folder name now. Dot use web root, and then you can specify the name, the new name of your folder. Now I'm naming it as my root. So what is my project root folder now? My root, not www root. Are you clear? So watch now. This for an idea for you. If tomorrow someone asks in an interview, you should be in a position to answer. For that reason only, I just said you, that's all. Images / atom.jpg. Images / atom.jpg. Just a minute, all of you. Yeah. /images / atom.jpg. Not working here. Earlier it came because images are cached by the browser. That's what I done. I cleared the cache and show you. Actually, when I saw it should not come there, but it came. Why? Because of the cached images. That's why the browsing history. It should not open. Why it should not open? How can you open? You said your root folder is my root, and the folder name is a www root now. It won't work now. Did you understand or not? Not only that one, the page is also not loading properly. See, headers, footers, everything is corrupted now. Why? It's not taking JS. It's not taking CSS. All are present on the www root. But you said your root folder name is my root. There is no my root folder, and it's not going to consider. So www root folder become invalid now. Are you getting my point or not? Means all this content should be moved to my root folder, or otherwise change the name of this one. I'm renaming it to my root. Is it running? Rename because the new name conflicts with an existing file or folder. Oh, just a second. When I said my root, maybe it created a folder there already. Yes. When I said my root in my program class, it already created of the folder there. See, did you notice it? That is why I'm not able to rename this particular folder. It already created the my root folder. And in the my root folder, you don't have CSS files and all now. That is why they are not launching. We have www root. This became invalid because I changed of the name now. Are you clear? And we generally don't do this here. I'm just only trying to give you an idea. This option is available. Tomorrow, it's an interview point of view. Someone asks you a question. Can I change the web root folder name? Can I change the web root folder name? What's your answer? Yes, you can change the web root folder name in the program class by calling a method called as use and specify the folder name. If you don't write this statement, the default web root folder is www root. Now run again. Now the www root is the root folder now. Everything is working perfectly as expected now. Yeah, see, Bootstrap and all are working now. Are you clear? So that is about the www root. So don't forget, any static file should come into www root. The next three folders. You need any explanation? Huh? You want any explanation for them? Controllers, models, views. Ignore them. I'm not talking about them. You have the controllers, models, and the views. Yeah, guys, here I given the code for you, how to change it. That's the old code. This is a new code. Okay. Controllers, models, views. I'm not talking anything about this one. Okay, till now, we look at all the main folders that are present within the ASP.NET Core MVC application project. Now let us take a closer look at the files stored in the project's root folder, which are also most important part of the project. The first one is app settings. App settings. This is equivalent to your web.config. See, packages.config is removed off, I said you. In the place of this, what did I say? Under dependencies, it will add your packages node. I also said your web.config is removed. See, basically, why these configs are removed, sir? XML is removed here. Now they brought JSON. Now they brought JSON into picture. So that's why the names are changed to the JSON extensions, basically. Without web.config, they called it as application.json. This is the place where you're required to write your app settings, connection strings, all the settings you make for your website should be in this file now. Understood or not? Tomorrow you want to write a connection string, there only you should write the connection string under the app settings file. When you open this, it will show you, and here you can add your connection strings or whatever you want, you can just add going forward. And basically when you're adding it, there's a leveling here. There's a leveling here. What is the root? Logging. Under that, log level. Under that, default Microsoft, and these are three sub. See, level, see, just like a folder. Under that, subfolder. Under that, another subfolder. This is also same. Logging. Under that, log level. Under that, default. What is that we'll discuss? I'm just trying to explain you the hierarchy here. Okay. So tomorrow you want to add connection strings here. You want to add connection strings here. What do you do? Connection strings. See, when I add connection strings, automatically it opened the brace and giving you now. And here you can write now what? Constr. And write your connection string now. User ID equal to SA. Password is equals to 123. Database equals to MVC DB. Data source is equals to server. This is how you should maintain the connection strings going forward. So I want another connection string. Put a comma and write one more now. Array, put a comma and you can write one more connection string, but cannot have the same name. 1 and 2. Here I want to write a connection string targeting to a different database. User ID, SA. Password, 123. Database, Northwind. Data source, server. Data source is server. Is it clear? This is the place where you are going to write the code similar to our web.config. Okay. Well, now listen, this is very important. Last class, I was telling about this. I given an overview of this. What is it? Tomorrow, when you work in the real time, these settings will be different. These settings will be different from development environment, staging environment, and production environment. See, in development environment, we will be connecting to one database. In testing environment, we will be connecting to another database which has a test data. Development database means junk data, guys. When you're developing, what you do, you insert some junk data that is useless. But when you go to testing environment, they'll give some meaningful values will be present there so that testing will happen. And third one is production. That means we should not touch at all. That is purely for end users. Purely for end users. So if I give development database to end user, he will see all junk data. Name means I will randomly type XYZ something now. It's not meaningful now. So that's why development has its own database. Testing has its own database. The test is what we call UAT. UAT, user acceptance test, or staging. Different names are there for it. Testing environment is also called as test or staging or UAT. All these three are same only. But in simple words, we say it as staging. Staging is nothing but test. So what are the three environments? Louder, open the mouths. development, staging, production. Development environment accessible only to developers. Staging, developers and testers. Okay. Client, yeah, for the client should test, na. Client should test on the staging only. Third one, only accessible to end users. That is purely for the end users, like this. So for all the three, we'll have three separate databases, not the same database. Settings also will be different. Settings also will be different. What, suddenly in an application, an error came. Suddenly in an application, an error came. That error should be reported immediately to the client. The error should be reported to the client. Who is using the application? End user. When end user is facing the error, a mail should come to the client now. Are you getting my point here? So I've written all the code for sending these mails and all. I'll show you how to send mails from the application. I'll show you going forward. We'll see that. I'm writing all the code for sending a mail now. Now I'm testing it now. I'm testing in the development only. First I'm checking now. Now tell me, if at all I write the client email ID, all these junk mails goes to client or not? Or a client will ask you, what nonsense are you sending me all these things now? You should not. So that's why at the time, whose email ID should be present? Your email ID. You only should receive that so that you can verify whether output is coming correctly or not. Are you clear? Staging is there. Staging also better. Tester email ID. In staging environment, whose email ID? Tester. In production, client email ID. Means this email ID also means environment to environment, everything will be changing now. Yes or not? So what is the bloody headache I taught you yesterday? Basically in the real time, tomorrow when you're working, we maintain these keys separately in a file. What's it? First we say development and we maintain all the keys. And there what values will be there? All developer required values will be there. Again, all the keys copy pasted, staging, and now you're required to change the database, email IDs and all the thing. Again, another set of keys to be pasted again, production, and we need to. So is it, so that becomes complex to manage now. That becomes complex to manage. We need to properly comment and uncomment all these things. When the application is in the development keys should be uncommented. Remaining two sets should be commented. When you're sending it to the staging, what should you do? Development should be commented and staging should be uncommented. When you go to production, development and staging should be commented. Production should be very carefully doing all the things. If you forget now, you forgot and you moved off to the production now. In the test keys now, what the end user sees is test values. Are you clear? So again, the application behaves wrong. Once it goes to production, again changing all the things and moving back to the production is a lot of time taking now. It's going to be a lot of time taking. It's not going to happen immediately. You made something wrong, pushed off it now. Application went up to production now. Again, you want to make change. Again, 1 or 2 days waste of time now because you need to get approvals. You cannot simply change off. You need to get approvals for everything. You want to move a new code to production means client should approve me now. Do you understand my point? Why you put a sad faces here? Okay, be active, I'm telling you. Okay, this is what the environment, what you're going to work tomorrow. And you put sad faces in the classroom and sit, I don't understand your behavior. Okay, so you need to get the approval from the client. Without an approval from the client, no action can be done there. So for everything, the client approval. So you send a mail. This happened actually Friday evening, you moved the code to production. After moving to the production, you came to notice, what is it? Keys are wrong. Are you clear? Again, you require to raise a approval to the client now. Client has to approve it. That is end of the week now. He did not approve it now. Saturday, Sunday, wrong data in the site. How much danger and how much problem it is understood now? They will remove the employee also. These type of issues, they will immediately fire the employee. What you're doing, you don't have proper attention. Without proper attention, how are you moving the code? So be careful. Employer can be removed. The employee can be removed off in the place now. Say very serious. The companies, see, for 2 days, wrong data coming there, and client was not, end user was not able to see it is a shopping cart, and end user was not able to see the correct products now. And the sale is stopped off. Millions of loss to me. Even the client can remove off the development company also. I don't want your services. We'll go with a new developer. We'll go with another company now. It happens. We should be very careful in managing all the things. To and fro, we need to check it out thoroughly. We need to verify and push the code into the production. Once you make mistakes in the production, your job is out. Be careful. That much serious critical scenarios will be there. To resolve all these particular problems, what they have done is, they're given as 4 different setting files for us. 4 files now. What are the 4, sir? 1, app settings.json. What will this contain? Common keys in all the environment. For all environments, some keys can be common. Common keys for all environment. Next, keys specific to development environment. Same like this. Just a minute. Copy. Where is paste? Oh, did not copy. Huh? Is it in run mode? No. No. Added wrong place. What is this? Let me name it. What's it? Staging. Staging.json. It's not pasting here. Let's paste in a different folder first. Right click, copy. Not pasting there. Paste in a different folder. Rename. Production.json. Totally 4 JSON files now. What is the first one? What it contains? Common keys. All environments, some keys can be common. In all environments, some keys can be common. Put it there. Next, app settings.development.json. Put all the keys specific to development. Production.json. All the keys specific to production. Staging.json. All the keys specific to staging. Are you clearer? And finally, what environment you are, put it in the launch settings. That's it. Put it here, which environment you want to use. If I say development here, it will use the keys of development. If I say staging here, it will use the keys of staging. If I use the production, it will use the keys of production. So without managing multiple keys, one single key, if you manage in the launch settings, that will take care of all the things now. You don't require to maintain multiple config files. Multiple config files in the sense you don't require to maintain multiple values in one config file. Multiple values in one config file, commenting, uncommenting. 5 or 6 keys, not a problem here. Think like 200, 300 keys now. All these things, commenting, uncommenting. While uncommenting, if you forget to uncomment any one key there, again, wrong values, lot of issues there. So without that, simplest process, come to here, tell now I am in staging. It will take all the values from the staging environment. Tell I'm in production. It will take all the values from the production environment. That is the other beautiful concept what was introduced in the .NET Core, ASP.NET Core. But earlier in ASP.NET, we don't have like this option. What we have is only one config only, web.config. That's all. But now we have multiple configs that came into picture. Is it clear? See now, in development, see, for all the 3, the database connection string is same. For all the 3, the database connection string is same. Then that is present in app settings.json now. No. This connection string is different for each environment now. Okay. So just guys, this connection string is different for each environment. Now let me go to the development. Let me go to the development, and in the development, I'm adding this, and see here I'm writing MVC DB dev is my database. Are you clear? Just I'll remove the second one just to give an idea. MVC DB dev is my database. Now look. Now let us go to staging. MVCDB test. MVCDB test. This is the test database. Now go to production. MVCDB is my production database. My production database is this one. But I have two other copies now. One is test. One is dev. So dev uses a separate connection string. Now see, is the connection string present in the app settings? No. Where is it? Under those subfiles. So now, if it is not present here, then it will go to these files. Which file it will go? Based on launch settings. In the launch settings, development is present. So it will come to development. In the launch settings, production is present. It will come to production. Sir, suppose if the same key is present in app settings also, and if the value is present here and here also, what happens? Means I have connection string here also. I have connection string here also. First preference always goes to these files only. First preference always goes to these files. If not present, then it comes to this file. That is the hierarchy. Are you guys clear? Okay. So that's all about how you maintain the connection strings in your application. Okay. So just watch app settings.json. The file is used to store information such as connection strings or application specific settings that are stored in JSON format, as the file extension suggests. If you are familiar with ASP.NET, you might notice that the function of this file is like a web.config file. And right now we find the below code in it. Yeah, by default, this is a code we found in it. Okay. How do you read from config files here? Configuration manager dot app settings dot, or otherwise connection strings dot. That is how we read now. Here we read in a different way, guys. Watch it. The settings in the file have a hierarchical structure and can be accessed with the configuration object defined in the startup class or in any other place of your program where you injected iConfiguration service. What did I tell you? For example, if you want to read the value of the key default, I said, you know, this is the hierarchy. What is the first one? Second one? Third one? I want to read this default. How to read it? See, get value of type string. The hierarchy, see now, logging, not dot, colon, log level, colon, default. That is how you are just going to read. You want to read the connection string now. Configuration get value of string, and under the connection strings, colon, con str1 will read you connection string 1. Colon, con str2 will read you connection string 2 now. Are you getting me? That's the process how to read the values from your config files here. It is not configuration manager class anymore. What is it? Configuration dot get value. How do you read there? Configuration manager dot app settings to read app settings, connection strings to read connection strings. That's how. But here, configuration manager dot get value of string, and you can specify the hierarchy. What do you want to read? Logging, colon something. I want to read connection strings, colon, con str1 will read me connection string 1 now. That is the process of reading from the JSON file. Okay. See, by default, in addition to app settings.json file, the ASP.NET Core project also includes an app settings.development.json file, and all the settings defined in the file are loaded only in the development environment and are not available in production. Same as that, we can also define app settings.production.json for settings in production environment and app settings.testing.json for settings in UAT environment. More correctly speaking, staging will be the correct word here. What is that? Staging.json. Even you say testing also, it works. Are you clear? But if you say staging here, in launch settings also you should write staging only. If you write it testing here, in launch settings also you should write testing only. You cannot use one name here and one name there. Okay. So in UAT is nothing but the staging. UAT stands for user acceptancy testing. User acceptancy test means the user is going to test and give an approval. Okay, everything is working fine. Move to production. Are you clearer or not? Everything is working fine. Move to the production. That's what we call user acceptancy testing. Once the user gives an acceptancy, we can move that to production. So understood about app settings now? Come on. What next? Next, startup. So let's come to program now. What is this program? Program is a class here. This file contains a class in it with the name program and a static method main, which is the entry point of our application. Just like our console apps and Windows apps, ASP.NET Core apps also start from program class only. The purpose of this method is to find the host and then pass the control to the startup class. So basically, what happens in this particular program class is, as I said you in the last session, the application will first start as a console application. It will first start as a console application. Okay, all of you, a little bit confusing, just to keep focusing on this. This is the entry point of your project now. Execution starts from here. Under this, what did you write? See, you are calling a method. You are calling a method. What is the method? The method is defined below. See there. The method is defined below. What is the method name? You are calling this particular method, and any arguments that are passed, you are passing to this method now. You know this now, string args and all these things. Are you clear? Now this method is actually responsible for converting your application into a web application and host it on the web server. Which method? Create host builder. This method is actually responsible for converting your application into a web application, and after converting it to web application, hosting that application on the web server. See the coordinate host. It is telling host dot create default builder, configure web host defaults, something it was writing there. Basically what is it is, it is going to configure your or convert your application into a web application. To convert the application into a web application, some information is required. To convert the application into a web application, some information is required, and all that information is present under startup. That's what this is the name of your class, guys. Last class we discussed now, program and startup are two separate classes. And you see now, this is the second class. The method, the application to convert as a web application, the information is present in this class. What is it? I'll explain you in detail. Hold on. All the code is present here only. See, here only see routing. Routing, the route pattern, all the things, all the information is present here only. See, what is this, you know? HTTPS configuration. HTTPS configuration. Do you remember? Yesterday when I used HTTP, it redirected automatically to HTTPS now. That will take care. And this is to tell, use the static files. All these are the statements to make your application as a web application. Use routing. It is telling use a route. Use authorization. Same way you can use authentication. You need to specify all the means. This is the code which converts your whole application into a web application. I will again come back and explain you each line over here, but just telling you, this is the code which converts your application into a web application. And this is called from the program class. See there. First, main method will start the execution. That will call create host builder. Now, create host builder will configure your application as a web application. Are you clear? And hosts it on the web server. Which web server you are? By reading the settings from the launch settings. In the launch settings, you specify now. From there, it will take the information and host the application on the web server. Once the application is hosted, the application is built and afterwards runs. First, the application is built, afterwards running. Array, to run it, you need to build first. Na? Okay. So did you understand the process? Once again, I'm repeating you. First, execution starts from program class main method. Okay. Now your application is console application. Remember, your application is a. Now, this main method is calling create host builder. Create host builder method will now host the application to a web server by converting into a web application. To do that conversion, it requires some information now. And where all the information is present? Startup class. I'm telling the name of the class here. Sir, mandatory startup class? No, you can give any name for the class. Suppose your class name is XYZ. Write that name here. That's all. Did you catch my point or not? If your class name is XYZ, write XYZ there. That's all. If it is startup, write the class name. Whatever is the class, any class you can write. But this class name cannot be changed. What is that? Program and main. This class name can be user choice. By default, Visual Studio names it as startup. And there all the code is present to make the application as a web application. Are you clear? There all the code is present to make the application as a web application. Okay. Once the application is made as a web application, the next stage is hosting on a server. And all that happens here only. See that host dot. We see the hosting that application on the server. Once application hosted on the server, next it will build the application and then run the application. So don't forget, your application first starts as a console, converts into web, hosts on the web server, builds, and then runs. That is the architecture or how the core applications will run for you. I'm talking this in sense of your MVC, but even the web API also same structure only. Even it is a web app also same. I'm talking in terms of ASP.NET Core applications, not MVC. Are you clearer or not? All ASP.NET Core applications will run like this only. Okay. Under that MVC, web app, web API, different category. That is secondary. But first thing is core application. All core applications should run in this particular process. So come back again, read this. See, the purpose of this method is to define the host and then pass the control to the startup class. Code in program class will be as following by default. This is the code. Okay. A host is an object that encapsulates the application resources such as logging, dependency injection, configuration, implementation, etc. As shown in the above code, create host builder method returns an object that implements the iHost builder interface. Host is a static class that can be used for, okay, all this is waste of time. Read these points, you'll understand. Startup.cs. The file contains the class in it with the name startup, and it will serve three main purposes. We are calling a class now. Which class? Startup.cs. Three things it will do for you. First one, all the application-wide constant values will be set here. For whole application, I need some set of constants now. That setting will be done here. Second, yeah, actually, dependency injection, I said you, we'll talk about this in detail. We will focus 2-3 sessions purely on the dependency injection because .NET Core means dependency injection only. That is the most important topic. We'll understand it very clearly, and all the dependency injection will be done in the startup.cs. Third one, pipelines. Do you remember the pipeline explained you in your MVC? The series of activities that should be performed. That is called the pipeline here also. What should happen first? Authentication. Afterwards, authorization. like this, how the flow should be there. All these are defined for you under the startup.cs. This class initially contains a lot of code as part of the project. MTR, web app or MVC, which has just been created from the very beginning, and it will become even bigger when you start adding new features to the application. By default, there is a lot of code here, not here. But still, the code will become bigger and bigger. Okay, what it will do, what happens, I'll tell you. By default, startup class is an ASP.NET Core application, includes 3 main parts in it. What are the 3 main parts? You know all the 3 are. What are the 3 things? See? One constructor and 2 methods. One constructor. Okay, just a minute here. Look at that. What you have, man? What is this? Constructor. What is this? Method. Configure services. Configure. That's what it is telling you. By default, startup class in the ASP.NET Core application includes 3 main parts. One is the constructor. Second one, configure services. Third one, configure. These are the 3 things what will be present for you over there. Okay. You know what is the need of constructor? Constructor will initialize all the application, your class-wide variables are initialized here now. Okay. You see here, you declared something. What is it? That is initialized here. That is initialized here now. Configuration is initialized here. Okay. Next. What is the next one? Next one. The configure services. See, as I said you already, your application is modular. What services are required? You're required to explicitly include all the services in your code now. Extra, I've given you an example. What is it? You went for a restaurant. Okay, there are different varieties of curries, roti, rice, okay, rasam, sambar, curd, different varieties are there. You want to eat rice. What you say? Give me a cup of rice. You have 3 or 4 varieties of curries now. You're asking, give me this curry. Okay, you want 2, you will take 2. You want a cup of curd. You want a cup of dal. Whatever you want to take. Someone wants to eat roti, but not rice. So he will ask me, give me rotis, give me so-and-so curries, and give me so-and-so dal. And you ask, and you, so whatever you want, you're asking now? Yes or not? This is also the same concept, is what I explained to you. In the configure services, what you required to do, you're required to tell what services you wanted to consume in the application. What services you want to consume in the application. Your application is a web app. Different services are consumed. Your application is a web API. Different services are consumed. Your application is an MVC. Different services are consumed. For example, watch. By default, there is a method call here. What did that say? Add controller with. This is to tell my application is an MVC application. So it should contain controllers and views in it. Controllers and views in it. Same way tomorrow, if you are creating a web app, not a MVC application, it's a web app. Services dot add. No, it is an MVC app. It is a web API. It is a web API. What is the method? See? You are configuring your application as a web API now. This method call is to tell mine is a web API application. Okay. One more method is there, guys. Services dot add razor pages, I think. Yes. What is this? Web API. What is this? Web app. What is this? MVC app. So that's what I given you an example. Say, I want to eat rice. I will take rice. And someone from North India, they don't want rice. They want to eat roti now. What do they say? I want roti. Are you clear? First, rice or roti, you're deciding that now. So here also the same thing. When I say add controllers, what is the meaning? I want only controllers. I don't want views now. Array, web API doesn't have views. Correct or not? Next. Here only views and models will be there. No controllers. I already said, you remember? What will be there? Views, models, and rather pages. MVC. Add controller with views. Means I want controller also. Hey guys, watch here. This is only controllers I want. Only views I want. Here, I want controller also. I want view also. See, someone is telling, I want only rice. I don't want roti. Someone is telling, no, I won't eat rice. I want only roti. Someone is telling, I'll eat both. I will eat both. I want to eat roti first and afterwards rice. So this is also same. This is only controllers. No views. Okay, what about this? Only views. What about this? Try one thing. Try one thing. Open empty project. Open web app project. Open MVC project. Open web API project. Open all. You have 4 options now. Give some name and open here and check it out. What happens? In the first one, empty, you won't find any of these 3 at all. Empty means you don't find anything at all. Now you open a web app project. What you'll find? Now you open MVC project, correct? By default, what you saw? Open an API project. What you will see? Yesterday we created an empty project now. Shall we go and see in that? D drive. MVC 11. This empty project I created yesterday. Guys, you need to do the R&D now. Just open all the type of projects now. Create a sample project. Delete them here. What? Just creating a project only now. Create and go to startup.cs and find out what is the code you find in the configure method. What is the name? Configure. See guys, this is startup. This is the startup. And you see here, configure services. I'm sorry, configure empty. Why is it empty? Which project? Empty project you open now. Yes or not? Sir, can I make it as a web app? Yeah. How? Services dot add razor pages. It's a web app. So I want it as a web API. Services dot add, sorry, controllers. It's a API. MVC. Are you clear? Once I start coding, I did not still start coding. Once I start coding, I will take a blank project. I will convert the project into MVC and I will write the code. Is it clear? What settings to be done? All the things I'll clearly show you. Where you're required to write services code, where you're required to configure the routes, all those things. I'll take a blank project and so. Later on, we'll take an MVC project and compare. Whatever I showed here, same will be present there automatically. Are you clear? Okay. So that's what. So basically, that is what about the configure services. See this here. This method gets called at the runtime. Use this method to add services to the container. For more information how to configure, you have a link here. Guys, visit the link and try to read the information. What services can be configured. I will show you because going day by day, every day a new service I'll add here. And all these things are modular. This is what I said here. What you want, you should tell that. Are you clearer or not? I've taken one variety of curry. That's completed. That's completed. Now I want to try another now. Or I want to try a dal. Or I want to try a sambar. Or I want to try a curd. I'll take different things when I want now. Are you clear? Timely, we will add one by one service. But the most important service is, see, you take whatever varieties of curries you want, whatever varieties of rasam or sambar or dal or curd you want, all this is secondary. First, you should select rice or roti. After that, only remaining all will come now. First, you should tell what MVC application, web API application, web app application. Tell that first. Later on, you can add more services going forward. Are you clear? So that is all about the first method. What is that? Configure services. See, the configure services method, where we register all necessary services like authentication services, authorization services, MVCR, Razorpay services, services for working with the database, as well as we register different application services to the dependency injection container here. By default, in an ASP.NET Core MVC application, the method contains below coordinate. What is that? Services dot add controller with views. Okay. You try creating a web app and see. You try creating a API and see. Just create some empty projects. Sorry, dummy projects. Some name sample. Don't give a name here. By default, some name will come now. Delete of all of them finally. But first open all four. Empty, web app, web API, MVC. Compare all the four things by putting side by side what is present in configure services. Empty, nothing will be there. Empty, code also will be empty. Okay, web app, you will see some code. API, you will see some code. MVC, you will see some code. Just compare all the things. Is it clear? Okay, note. The order of the services you register in configure services method is not important. And in this method, and this method is executed only once upon, this is like your application start method of global.asx, because global.asx is also not there now. No web.config, no global.asx, no packages.config, all are removed of now. So this method is similar to our application start. Okay, na? Just like our application start, this also will execute. Okay. So the order is not important. You can put anything in any order you want. Means this is first, this is second, that doesn't matter. Why I'm telling you is because in the next method, that order is important. Alright, what is the next method? Configure. This is to configure the services. What did this I'll tell you? This is to configure the services. Here order is not important. What is configure? I'll explain you. We'll talk about it. Okay. So, but clearly understand the order of the services registered in configure method is not important. And this method is executed only upon the application start. And this method contains calls such as services.add DB context, services.add Razor pages, add controller with views, add control, etc. All these methods are extension methods. You guys remember extension methods? We learned in the C# classes about extension methods. Yes, na? We learned about extension methods in C#. You have any doubts? The video also posted on YouTube. Go and check it out. All these methods are extension methods. Next one. Or next one. Configure. The configure method is a place where we can set up the middleware pipeline for an ASP.NET application. Means this is the pipeline setting. This is the pipeline. What should happen first? What should happen next? All these things are controlled here now. See guys, first authentication, authorization. That only you're telling. First perform authentication. Afterwards do a authorization. Then use routing. Then go to route config. From there go to controller. All the settings should be done here now. This is to configure the pipeline. Already explained about this in MVC also. Pipeline. What first, what next? That is called as a pipeline. That pipeline settings are done here. The configure method is a place where we can set up middleware pipeline for our ASP.NET Core web application project. Unlike the services registered in the configure services, remember their order is not important. The order of all middlewares defined in configure method has crucial significance. Who doesn't have importance? Configure services order is not important. But configure, I've written use authorization, afterwards use authentication. That is waste now. Na? Without authentication, you'll do authorization. Na? That sequence is important here now. Are you clear? And how it is done? It is all done by using a new concept called as middlewares. It is done by using a new concept called as middleware. What is the middleware? What is a? ASP.NET Core introduced a new concept called middleware. A middleware is nothing but a class which is executed on every request. Understand, guys, this code executes on every request. But configure services executes only one time. Yes or not? Configure services how many times? Configure every request. It executes for every request. On every request in ASP.NET Core application, there will be multiple middlewares in an ASP.NET Core application. It can be either framework provided middlewares added via NuGet or our own custom middleware. We can set the order of the middleware execution and request pipeline. Each middleware adds or modifies HTTP request and passes control to the next middleware component. These are classes here. These classes will do. See, there's a middleware called as authentication middleware. And what is the code in the class? The code in the class is to perform a authentication for the user now. And once this is satisfied, it will send the control to the next middleware now. Who is the next middleware? Authorization middleware. Authorization middleware class will check now. What is it? Whether this user has access to the method or not. Access to the method or not. Are you getting me? Yes, having an access. Then it will send to next middleware. No, it will stop there and send you back, telling you you don't have a access to the next level of the code now. That's what the pipeline, one by one, they will be executing. Every middleware is a class with a set of logic in it. Okay. At the beginning of the pipeline, we need to place a middleware that are necessary for auxiliary tasks like authentication, and that don't consume a lot of memory and process time. In the starting, those things should be present. Just a second, guys. Have a look. Now open the configure. Come on. Watch this carefully. What is the first middleware? Got it. Not the first middleware. Read up to here, guys. If condition. If environment is development, use developer exception page. Else. Remember, when I explained you custom errors in MVC, when I explained you about the custom errors in MVC, on that day, I thought you want three things here. On, off, remote only. Remember that? What is on? Displays an error page both to developer and end user. Off. Yellow screen. Displays the yellow screen for developer and remote only. Developer and end user also. Remote only. For developer, yellow screen. For end user, error page. Do you remember that or not? For developer, yellow screen. Why? Developer needs to know. For end user, this is only it is telling you. If the environment is a development, means if the developer is using now, show developer exception page means it is like our yellow screen showing you the whole details of the error. Whole details of the error. No. Environment is not development here. Environment is staging. Means user is testing it now. Environment is a production. Means end user is working now. Will you show the yellow screen now? What to show? Error page. There is an error page defined in the home controller. Error action. Home controller. Error action. Are you clearer or not? Tell me. Okay. So what to come to developer? Yellow screen. Yellow screen. What to show to client and end user? Error page. That is a separate error page in the home controller. Watch it. By default, you have a home controller and also an action method called as error, and it is having a error page. Any error will take you to this particular page now. And that is specified on the top only now. Why on the top? Array, starting only error can come now. If I write this somewhere in the bottom now, how does it know? So first only you should tell now. What is it? If errors come anywhere in the code, do this. Did you understand me? Next, use. Already yesterday we saw HTTPS redirection. Means if I enter HTTP protocol, redirect to, now tell me that is also before authentication authorization only now. Array, this is request time only. Request came. Then only redirection should happen. After request came to server, next comes authentications, authorizations and all. So before the request reaches to the server, initially only the redirections has to work. Okay, what next? If this middleware is present, then only static files will work in the project. If this middleware is not there, static files will not work in the project. Static files will not work in the project. What do you mean by that? Watch. Let me clear the cache. Run. What's this, guys? Images. Atom.jpg. See, why? No need. Static files are not working. Static files are not working. Why, sir? Because I did not set up the pipeline now. I'm not telling static files can be served. Static files cannot be served now. Are you clear? And for static files, authentications, authorizations are not required. That is why that is on the top only. Array, to launch your home page, you want authentication. To launch a home page, login page is there. If you say authentication is required for login page, I already said you what will happen. What happens? It will be routing there only now. It will call you the same again. Nothing will open. So that's a static pages doesn't require authentications and all. That is why you have it here. Okay. Afterwards, yes, you need to route. You need to route. Means routing means going to the appropriate action method. Correct only? Tell me confidently. Routing means taking to the appropriate action method. Which controller, which after reaching there, then you require to verify whether this user has access to this action method or not. Then what comes? Authorization. Sir, what about authentication? Right now, authentication is not there. I will add authentication. When I add authentication, then I should say app dot. I need to add this middleware going forward. In the authentication authorization classes, we'll do that. So now see the sequence. What is it? For static files, no need authentication. Okay. So now the user is trying to access any MVC page. Then use the authentication. Authentication satisfied. Then go to routing. Then go to routing. Okay. Routing will take you to the action method. Then check authorization is available or not. Are you clearer or not? And when you call use routing, this will internally configure the endpoint. This will internally configure the endpoint. What's this, man? You know that. Controller, action, ID. So optional, question mark is there, na? Question mark is optional, nullable. That is nullable, optional. But in MVC 5, it was in a different style. We don't have a question mark. Reason is, when MVC 5 was launched, nullable value types are not there. When MVC was launched, nullable value types are not there. Later, a nullable value types came. That's why by default in MVC, you'll find ID and in the next line we write optional. But by the time core was available, nullable value types are there, na? Yes or not? That is the reason why it is directly using of nullable. So simply putting a question mark telling you this is nullable. So that's why, see, basically, and when this method is going to be called, you know, when I say use routing will call endpoint and configure the process. Then it goes to authorization, validates whether this user has a right to access this method or not. So like this, guys, everything should be configured. The sequence here, the sequence is very, very important here. Are you clearer or not? See, you're calling, you're just changing of the sequence. What is it? Use authorization, use routing. You don't know which method to call. Without knowing which method to call, how do you check authorization, man? Yes or not? You remember manager home page, manager help page. Yes or not? If you go to the home page only, then only you come to know this particular method is accessible only to manager. Without coming to that method, how do you know? Because that is on the top of the method. Yes or not? Where you written that? On the top of the, means if you reach the method, then means first routing should be done. Reach the method, then authorization. But first authorization, afterwards routing, that sequence will miss now again. Are you clear? Everything you write here will be very, very important. And guys, remember, day by day, it means every day, we will be adding a new service and a new pipeline. We'll be adding a new service and a new pipeline. I'll teach you why I added this service and why I am adding this pipeline. At that point of time, I'll tell you. But as of now, what is there? That only I explained you. That's all. As of now, what we saw here. Okay, now see, this method gets called by the runtime. Use this method to add services. Okay, this method gets called by the runtime. Use this method to configure the request pipeline. Configure the pipeline. Use this particular method. This particular method should be used. And all these particular settings will make your application as a web application. Are you clear? Who is calling this class, guys? Create host builder method is calling this now. So now when that class is called, all settings for a web application are completed. Next, host sit on the server. Which server? Web server. Which web server? Whatever you choose. Then builds, then runs. Now your application is a web application. It started as a console, but converted into web. That's the architecture. So you can have a look here. Yeah, guys, by default in an ASP.NET Core MVC application, the method contains below coordinate. What's it? Configure first. Next, all the things. Use HTTP redirections, use static files, use routing, use authorization, use endpoint. See, first one is exception handling middleware. First one is the first line in the method defines different middleware for development and production modes. If we are in the development mode, we define middleware that will catch all exceptions in the pipe and show a special page with extra information about the error, exception message, stack trace, all the details will be shown for you there. Simply speaking, yellow screen, which will show you all details on it. Whereas in production mode, both guys, production and staging mode, we catch all exceptions and then redirect the request to a specified path. What is that? Home error in our case. Sir, can I change this? Yes. We have a in detail discussion about exception handling, how to handle these exceptions in variety of ways. I will show you. Here, I won't focus on controllers. I won't focus on models. I won't focus on views. You know all them. Are you getting my point here? I will purely focus on the real-time environment. I will purely focus on the real-time environment. How do you do all these things in the real time? I'll show all those particular things here. And I said to you, by the end, we will create a mini project. We'll create a mini project. We'll start from the basics one by one. We will add all the services to it. Finally, we'll host it on Azure and make our application ready. Is it clear? Fine. What next? Use static files middleware now. This next middleware in the pipeline is which takes care of all these static files. That is, if the application gets a request for .js, .cs or any image files, this middleware looks for the file with a request named inside of the www root folder and returns it back if found. If not found, it will send a 404 status code not found response will come back. Yeah, page not found response will come now. Next, routing. two middlewares here. Use routing, both will work in combination. Use routing will call use endpoints. See, the next pair of middlewares are the most important ones in the pipeline, since they define the routing for all other endpoints in your web application. In simple words, they match a particular request to a particular endpoint, a piece of executable code that handles the request. Yeah, that code only will handle the request to you now. How exactly does it work? In the configure method, first we call app.useRouting middleware to add the endpoint routing middleware to our pipeline. And after that, we need to call app.useEndpoints middleware to add endpoint middleware to the pipeline, define the endpoint. Each endpoint is an object that contains, as mentioned above, a delegate. So a piece of code that handles the request. Watch it, guys. It's an anonymous method. Sorry. Anonymous method here. Remember or not? Lambda expression. Open the braces. Write your code. It's an anonymous method basically. Delegate call. Internally, it is going to be a delegate call. It is a delegate call which happens to you behind the appropriate screen. And that is going to contain a anonymous method. If you have any doubts on this, look into your anonymous methods, lambda expressions, all these particular things I explained to you. And your videos also on the appropriate thing. What are anonymous methods? What are lambda expressions? What are expression bodied members? It using all the latest things there. Using what? Anonymous methods and lambda expressions. Using a lambda operator and writing the code in this one. So it is a delegate call basically. Okay, we can use such extension methods as map, get, map, post. Yeah, we'll talk about that. See the pattern, guys. See the pattern. See, will be matched for all the requests started with. See, for example, the following pattern. What is it? Slash something slash path will be matched for all requests started with. I taught you this in your MVC class also. Recollect yourself. I taught you this in MVC class also. NIT. Array, same way. API. API is a static value. Afterwards, controller name and all. Here also, a static value. What is that? NIT. Controller. Default value home. Action. Default value index. You already know that. By default, you don't find NIT here. I added. So telling that the pattern should match there. Now all the requests should contain the word NIT before the controller name as following. See, NIT, home index. So NIT is mandatory or not? Why? We specified in the route. Already long back when I explained about route config, I shown you this already practically to you. And the best example is API. In API, we have a static value, API. So same way we can add this. When the web application gets a new request, it is not processed by any middleware defined before. Use routing middleware. And then the endpoint routing middleware matches it to some endpoint. The endpoint middleware calls the endpoints delegate to handle the request. All other middlewares that are added after app routing and before endpoint can see which endpoint was selected by endpoint routing middleware, and they can change something. Example, apply a see man here between the two authorization. Use routing and you're telling the endpoint now. What is the endpoint? Home controller index. But before launching the method, check whether the user has permission or not. Yes or not? Array, that only it was telling. Read carefully. What is it telling you? All other middlewares that are added after use routing and before means in between can see which endpoint was selected by endpoint routing middleware, and they can change something now. Example, apply a authorization policy before endpoint middleware dispatches to the selected endpoint. Before you are dispatched to the appropriate location, this comes into picture now. Okay, so that's what the use routing is going to do. Next middleware. How? this middleware is added for authorizing a user if the current request is anomalous, but the selected endpoint requires authorization. Are you clear? Okay, next. Both configure services and configure methods are called implicitly while the application starts. You just only need to define the services and middlewares here corresponding. So it is telling you, you don't require to call these methods. Who will call? They're all called implicitly. You are only responsible for configuring them. Yeah, anyhow, you clearly watched here. What is that? We are not calling this. Who is calling? Program class is calling the class now. Which class? Startup. When startup class is called, constructor, configure services, all methods are going to be executed implicitly. I don't require to call them. Okay, guys, now the most important. Related only. Okay, now the most important. Watch, read that. Stop. Yesterday only I shown you that already. You don't have a startup class now. Yes or not? Startup class is not there. Without two separate classes, they included for you under one class. Everything is under one class only. Which class? Program. That is why, see, without directly showing you 6 or 7, why I shown you is, tomorrow if I show you 6 or 7 and your company project is on 5 now, again you will not understand the concept now. That is why I'm teaching you 5 and 6. First understand 5 and then you understand how the changes are made in 6 and 7. 6 and 7 are same only. So if I say 7 means, that applies to 6 also. Okay. And the code of this class will completely is present directly under, by default, the code under program.cs file will be without any class over there because .NET 6 uses C# 10 version. And in this version, we are provided the feature calling top level statements. If the project has a single main method and all the code if required to be defined under main method, then without explicitly defining the class, a main method, we can directly write the code in the file as below. Directly we can write up the code. And if you feel this confusing, what did I say? Select the option. What option? Do not use top level statement. That's why here I given the code for you without top level and the same code for you using top level. Understood? Nothing will be there here. What will extra namespace? Class, main method. Remaining all will be same. I given both the two things for you. Is it clear? Without using top level as well as with using top level. Clearer or not? Sir, how do you differentiate this code now? How do you differentiate? Because there we have two methods, configure services. But here we don't have anything, only one method. What is that? Watch, main. In that only you have everything. See, add controllers. Everything here only now. But there it is very clearly separated now. Configure services, configure. But here, how do you distinguish now? Simple, guys. Look at here. You have a line here. What is that? Louder. That is build. There it called now build. Build and run. So this is a build code. Whatever you write before build is configure services. Whatever you write after build is configure. Whatever you write before build is configure services. Whatever you write after build is configure. It is configure. So if you want to write anything in the configure services, write that statements above that line, what I selected. You want to write anything in the configure, write below that line. See now, what is present above that? And I see here. See, clearly check now. What do you have? Is a services now. Configure services. Okay. I come below. Configure code. This is the same code I explained you now. Configure now. And clearly mentioned here. Because we don't have startup class here. And all code need to be defined in the main method of program class only. Follow the below guidelines to write the code. Read the first point. Next. Are you clear? Okay. See guys, I can understand this is not understandable one time. I have studied for multiple times to explain you, but nothing is in my hands. Yeah, what is there? I can teach you something. It's not my design, or I cannot tell in my way. What is present, I need to teach that. That's all. Okay. One time you want to understand, but going forward, everything will have a detailed understanding one by one. Right now, we are telling all at a time. We'll take one. What? Authentication. We'll discuss about authentication and all. Next, we'll take authorization. We'll discuss like this one by one middleware. We'll study. One time, you cannot understand this. I agree. You need to read it and practice it. That's it. But nothing in my hands. That is the architecture designed by Microsoft. I have to tell you how is it present. You understand how much pain I have suffered because I am telling you each and everything. No one taught me. I need to read. I need to tell you one statement mean I need to understand why this configure service. What is this? I need to read a lot of information first. Without that, I can't tell you. Okay. I spend hours and hours, days of time to understand about this. But once you get an idea with this will be very beautiful application development. Modular, smaller in size, performance wise, everything will be very beautiful. That's why Core is very popular now in the market, because the concept of modularity, smaller deployment footprints, that is the main advantage what you have with the Core. Okay, takes time to get into this because advanced here we are in the late advanced versions. These are so getting into time. It will take time, but yes, we need to have that patience. We need to have that patience to just understand about each and everything. Okay, so tomorrow I'll teach you what the importance of the main method. Why do you have this main method and all these things? We'll just see in the next class. Okay, let's stop here, guys. We'll meet tomorrow.